Hey guys, thanks for being here. I'm Ellen, and today we're going to do a sequence that focuses on opening up our hamstrings, which are these big, powerful muscles on the backs of our legs. So if you have a yoga strap or something like that, go ahead and grab it. If not, don't worry about it. And one thing I want to say before we get started is when we're working with the hamstrings, it's super important to watch your form and to not push it too hard because you can injure the low back while the hamstrings are opening up. That's where we tend to overstretch. So, all right, let's do it. All right, so let's get started lying on our backs today. I just woke up like 20 minutes ago, so I might just fall asleep. All right, so knees bent up to start. Bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly. Eyes can be closed or focused on one point on the ceiling. Let's just take a couple moments just to tune in with our breath. This is yoga after all. So just nice big breaths through the nose, out through the nose. Just kind of come home to your body a little bit. Get out of your head, get back into your body. Noticing if there are any spots in your back that are tight and are limiting you from taking a nice full breath. See if maybe you can relax them into the floor on your exhales. And following your exhales all the way out, just letting them go all the way completely so you can start a nice full inhale. And then follow your next exhale all the way out. And then bend both knees, bring them into your chest, just gently rock side to side, curling into a little ball, warming up the low back just a little bit. And then extend both legs straight up to the ceiling. So you want to pull your toes back towards your face. And they're not angled out to the side. You want everything to be on about hip width distance train tracks. So your toes are basically parallel to your mat. And you want to press out through your heels and tighten your thighs a little bit. So when you're doing this, you should feel a little bit of a stretch on the backs of your knees, on the backs of your legs. If this is really painful and doesn't look like this, that's fine. Just bring it out however. You want your thigh bones to be pretty much perpendicular to the floor so your abs don't have to work so hard quite at first. So take a couple inhales and exhales there. Something that's important about opening up the hamstrings is not just like stretching, and this goes for any muscle. Stretching the one muscle that we want to focus on. It's about getting the entire body to support the gradual opening of that muscle. So when we're doing this, we're going to focus a lot on quad engagement, on low back and calf and foot alignment and all of that stuff too. So don't think that that's not just as important, because it is. All right, so from here, you're gonna wake up the core just a little bit. On a nice big inhale, press up through both heels. And then on your exhale, take your left leg down, maybe just about halfway. It doesn't need to be all the way. And then on that exhale, you're gonna feel your right leg pull in just a little bit. So don't use your hands, you're just gonna use your muscles. Inhale back up to that L. Exhale, switch. Inhale, exhale, switch. This time, if you want to take it a little further, you can take that leg down just a little bit more. If this is really hard, either don't take it down as far or have a little bend in your knees. That's totally fine. You're still working on opening up the backs of the legs, even if your legs aren't straight. Let go of needing your legs to be straight. So keep it going, whatever, when you're on. Nice big inhale, stretch up. Exhale. So in your exhales, the leg that's coming towards you, you're feeling a little bit of a pull, and you're using your muscles to do it. And switch, a couple more of these. If you need to take a break, take a break. Mindful of what's happening in your low back here too. You don't want your low back to be arching too much. You want to keep it pretty flat. It's okay if there's a little bit of a curve, but don't allow it to overarch past that sense of a natural curve. And see how it feels, even if your legs are bent, to take your leg down a little bit further. If you haven't already, you'll start to notice a very subtle stretch through your groin. Should feel pretty good. Almost done. Still pressing out through your heels and pulling your toes back towards your face. Don't let your feet be dead. They're part of your body. Keep them charged up. Alrighty, and gently relax that out. Shake out your feet, shake out your legs. You shake out your low back. Get a couple wiggles in. Let it feel good. Roll out the ankles a little bit. If you're doing it right, you should start to feel a little bit of a burn on your shins. That's good. Okay, and then roll over onto your side easily. Take yourself on up. Quick little cat-cow to get us started here. So spread those fingers out. Hands right underneath your shoulders, knees right underneath your hips. And then on your inhale, as you bring your body down, feel like your sit bones are spreading away from each other. So there's a lot of space in your pelvis. Your pelvis is really arcing down towards the floor. And then on your exhales, release that. Just allow everything to come into a nice arch there. Inhale, press out through those sit bones so there's tons of space in your pelvis. Exhale. So just notice how it feels in basically where your hamstrings, these muscles here, attach up into your hips. It's basically like up in your butt. So just take a couple breaths just to see how that feels. Bring your inner attention to that part of your body if you can. So you're going to be using it as a point of reference later. And of course, most importantly, you're taking nice, big, delicious, full breaths in and out, and charging your body up with prana or life force, or oxygen, if you're more literal that way. And then on your next inhale, take your hands, one hand, print that in front, curl those toes under. Now think cow, which is that extension inhale position. As you exhale, those hips back up. So keep your knees bent. If you have tight hamstrings, downward dog is a position where your knees are bent. It's just better this way. So think about when your knees are bent, you've got this nice big spread through your sit bones. It feels like there's plenty of space and your low back isn't rounding. If you start to straighten your legs, it starts to feel more like the cow pose, where everything gets a little bit compressed and stuck. It might feel like you're stretching your hamstrings, but you're stretching the bottom part of your hamstrings here by your knees. We want to focus on opening up the top of our hamstrings just as much, which is a little bit harder to do, but it's much more important. So, nice, happy, bent knee, downward dog. Let it feel pretty good. And then on an inhale, by the way, if downward dog doesn't feel very good, you can do the same pose either on your knees, stretching out like a little puppy pose, or you can bring your forearms down to the ground in dolphin, either way. So on an inhale, take your right leg up towards the ceiling. Now same thing where your toes are pointed down, your thighs are engaged. And you want to reach that up as high as it goes without allowing your hip to open. You want your toes to still be pointed straight down towards the ground. And it should be a little bit hard. It should feel like a stretch on your left leg, on the back of your left leg. So let's hang out here for a few more breaths. Nice big full breaths. You're breathing while I'm blathering. And notice too if your left hip kind of wants to sway out towards the left, try and keep them pretty level, like on hip width distance train tracks that are running across your mat. All the downward dog principles still apply, engaging through the arms, pressing into the finger pads. Good, and then on an inhale, press up just a little more through that right heel, and then exhale, step it through. Take your back knee down. A little rest. So we're in a nice kneeling lunge here. On an inhale, your hands can stay down towards the mat, but on an inhale, you're going to sink your hips forward and your heart is going to come up. So a nice big stretch through the left hip flexor on the front of your thigh. And then on an exhale, on your next exhale, you're going to take your hips straight back and keep your heart lifted. So don't round through the upper back. You want to keep your heart reaching forward even as your hips sit straight back, coming into Ardha Hanumanasana, half split pose. So for me, I kind of like to take my right foot out a little more in front so that way my hip and knee are in alignment on the left. Some people think it feels better to kind of sink into it like so. Just watch that there's not too much rounding and stretching going in your low back. So hang out there for a little bit. It should be like oh yeah, I feel that in my hamstring for sure. I like to pull my shoulders back, collarbones away from each other, Heart reaching forward, face expression soft. I like to kind of do little spider fingers. You can have your hands flat on the floor, have like, little fists, whatever feels good. And then back to your breathing. A couple more breaths here. All right, and then let's go back and forth. So on an inhale, you're gonna bend that right foot or right knee, reach your heart forward. Exhale, sit it back. Heart still stays lifted. So there's a little bit of a round, but your heart is still reaching forward, so you're not collapsing. Inhale, reach. Exhale, sit it back. And notice if your hips are wiggling side to side. That's a check to see if those stability muscles are working. Inhale, forward. And exhale, back. Let's do one more. Good. And this time on your inhale forward, take your hands forward, curl those back toes under, lift them up so you're in a high, low lunge, if that makes sense. And then just step back to downward dog, shake it out a little bit. And then let's go ahead and do the other side. So your left leg inhales up towards the ceiling, heel points up, toes point down. Make sure there is maybe a little bit of a bend on that right leg. Feeling the stretch in your groin, checking in with all your body parts, fingertips to toes, to your nose, to your tailbone. And you're breathing. You might notice that you can press up a little higher on your inhales. Maybe not. And again, you're pulling those toes towards your face, so there's engagement on the front part of your leg. All right, last inhale, reach up with that left heel, and then exhale. Step it through, right knee comes down, little stretch, just kind of enjoy that. Noticing how maybe you have more space in your body to take bigger breaths now after working a little bit, building some heat in the body should feel kind of good. And then inhale to create space. Your heart lifts up. Exhale, your tailbone points straight back. And then you can negotiate your positioning to what feels good. I'll hang out here for 5 breaths or so. Just however many of your full, deep, conscious, delicious breaths feel good. So on your inhales, your heart reaches forward. Think cow pose, that extension through the spine. Keeping those sit bones spread away from each other. And then on your exhales, you keep that extension and you just maybe sit back just a little bit. So it's really common in forward folds, which tend to be the hamstring opening poses, to want to round over it. So it's like, oh, I can totally bring my head to my leg. I mean, you may not be there, it doesn't matter. But it's a lot more important to stay upright and to keep integrity through our whole torso. It allows the hips to come into an alignment that helps to open up the hamstrings. So, in a safe way. All right, and then let's flow through it a little bit. Nice inhale, reach forward through the heart. Exhale, reach back through the tailbone. Back and forth. And keep your attention on not just what's happening in the hamstring and in your alignment with the side-to-side wiggling, but also what's happening in the front of that right hip. It should feel kind of good, especially after all that work we did on the other side. Mindful of your shoulders, mindful of your fingers, mindful of your facial expression, mindful of your breath. One. Nice big inhale forward. And an exhale back. And then on your inhale forward, you can make little adjustments if you like. Take that back knee up. And this time, step forward to the top of your mat. Knees bent, knees bent, knees bent. Landing in a little forward fold. So the reason I say knees bent, it's the same thing. If you think about what's happening in your hips where those hamstrings attach, if your legs are straight, your whole spine comes into this rounded, constricted place where you can't breathe as well, energy can't move so much through your chakra system, and it puts pressure on the tendons and the parts of your legs that are a little bit more vulnerable. So, and you can kind of cat-cow a little bit through this. I mean, it's okay to take it to the edge. So what I mean by that is on your inhales, you can kind of reach forward through your heart, bend your knees a little bit, stick your butt back behind you so the sit bones spread. And then on your exhales, you can round a little, see how it feels to straighten the hamstrings. Just don't overdo it and get locked in this other position. So just kind of go back and forth, just pulsing a little nice inhale, exhale, little mini cat-cows. You can do mini cat-cows in downward dog, you can do it in forward folds, you can do it in whatever. Really good for the pelvis, good for the breath. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. Just wiggle a little bit. Breathe. All right. And then bend your knees a lot. Inhale, sweep your arms up and forward, coming all the way up. Squeeze your glutes a little bit at the top, and then exhale those arms down by your sides. Roll the shoulders out a little bit. Just adjust to being upright. Give your body a chance to integrate all that work that we just did in the hamstrings. So Tadasana, mountain pose. Your feet for this one, hip width distance apart. Palms facing forward so your shoulders are open. Just check in to see if you can feel your knees over your ankles, your hips over your knees, and your shoulders over your hips, and then your ears over your shoulders. And don't work too hard. Just kind of feel your body's natural alignment. This is just to check in. I had a body worker tell me the other day that true alignment is actually effortless, which is funny because I spent all this work like, okay, we're going to have everything lined up on your train tracks, in your positioning, whatever. And that's good. It's important to teach your body those habits or give it an opportunity to learn those habits. But if you're working too hard, you're probably missing the point. I was missing the point. That was what the discussion was about. Anyway, breathing here. All right, now we're gonna work with a little bit of an open hip. So you're gonna take your right leg, you're just gonna step it straight back with a nice open hip. So it ends up being like warrior two legs, but your legs are straight, or triangle legs, really. So your right foot is pointed perpendicular to your mat, pretty much. Your toes are pointed straight away from you, and your front heel is pointed about towards that back arch. And then from here is feel your hips sink over towards the right. So we're not going to come all the way into triangle, but we're just going to feel that little hip adjustment. So instead of being really stable, like straight up and down, you're just going to tilt it over. It should feel like a little bit of a stretch in your inner thigh. And then really press into the outside edges of both feet. And then if you want, if it feels good, if not, don't do it, but if it feels good, you can come into triangle a little bit, which starts from that pelvis, and then you're leading through the heart and that really long spine, just bending down just a little. It doesn't need to be a lot. You don't need to add the arms if you don't want to. I care more about just that really subtle little hip shift to open up through the hip here. Your belly is strong. Your tailbone and your hips are opening a little bit up towards the back wall or back behind you, but not too much. So you're not collapsing forward. Everything is still really active, and there's a lift in your legs. There's a lift in your torso. Good. And then come on back up if you have built or bent over a little bit. Flip your feet, and then we're going to take it to the other side. So if you're behind me now, or never mind. Okay. So same thing. So now your hips are just tilting over towards the left. There's just a really gentle opening through your inner thigh, hip bone area, pressing into your feet, the outside edges of your feet especially. And then play with that. If this, you already feel it, you probably don't need to move any further. If you want to just see how it feels in your body to take your torso down a little bit, it should accentuate this a little bit. You can see how that is. So your tail isn't tucking under if you're having to tuck your tail under to where those sit bones are coming towards each other like cow or like cat pose. that's not so much what we want. So get a little bit more of a lift and a little bit more extension. It's subtle. If you're kind of confused, just enjoy whatever sensation is in your body and just breathe into that and breathe into your feet. That'll help your body find its natural alignment. And of course, we're breathing. All right, when you've had enough of that, press into your left foot, come on out. Tilt those toes so they're all pointed the same way now. Bend your knees a little bit and then forward fold. So sitting your hips straight back, leading with your heart, not collapsing through the upper chest like we've been practicing. So you just float down. So whenever we fold, pretty much in any yoga pose that we do, we want to lead with our heart. And that's life too, right? We want to lead with our heart. Not with the top of our head. It curls us under, it gets us confused. Nice straight leg forward fold. And let's move around a little bit here. So you can kind of bend one leg, straighten the other. You can walk your hands over to one foot and then the other. We'll be here about 5, 6, 7 breaths or so. So just let's see what feels good. I like to keep my knees at least a little bit bent because it feels like there's more opening in the back of my hips and that upper part of our hamstrings where they attach to the hips, the pelvic bone. So just be mindful of that. Just stretch it all out. Color outside the lines a little bit. Stretch out the back by walking your hands over one side and then the other. Staying deeply connected to your breath. Using your breath to make these motions, even these subtle little random motions, will make them a lot more powerful. So when I'm inhaling, I like to kind of reach forward to create some space, and then exhaling, sink into it, see where my edge is in that particular posture. So play with that. Almost done. All right, and then on an inhale, bend your knees a lot. Come halfway up, feel your belly pull in a lot. Hands come to your hips and then press into your feet as you come all the way back up. Then we're gonna come all the way back to a seat. So this is Dandasana or staff pose. This one is one that when I'm teaching classes, I see a lot of people do wrong. So this is where that form warning is important. So notice how when I'm in this posture, I'm not rounding in my low back. I'm sitting on the front edge of my sit bones, so my pelvis is rolling forward like cow pose. There's a lot of extension. There's a little arch in my low spine. There pokey is from my dog. So if this is not possible, you can sit up on something like a block or roll up the back of your yoga mat, or you can bend your knees as much as you need to. It's so much more important to get the top alignment right than it is for any of the rest of it. If you can, I would recommend sitting up on something like a block, some books, something like that. Just like so. Makes it a little bit easier. So whether you're sitting up on something, whether you have your knees bent or straight, you're gonna pull those toes back in towards your face. You're gonna pull your hips forward so the tops of your quads, muscles on the front of your thighs that balance out the hamstrings, those are working. If you're doing it right, it should be a little hard. And your feet can be about hip width distance apart again. And you're breathing. So it's a little bit of core work because your core holds you in the posture. So the reason that we're pulling our toes back towards our face and keeping our quads engaged is because of this process in the body called reciprocal inhibition. So if you're a bio major, maybe you know what this is. So it's this principle that when one muscle in the body contracts, the brain sends a signal to the opposite muscle to relax. So basically when you pick something up, you engage your bicep, your brain says tricep, relax, so you're not playing tug of war. Sometimes this gets messed up if our posture has some strange dysfunctions in it. But that's what we're using with all of this engagement. It helps to open up the hamstrings in a really powerful, deep way. So it's not just because it's uncomfortable and hard that I'm making us do it. All right, and if you need a little break, take a little break. You can even kind of round your spine a little bit. Just shake that out. before part 2. So in part 2, you're going to do the exact same thing. And you're going to take it one step further. I'm going to face you so you can see what I'm doing. Coming from the hips here, you're going to rotate your knees in towards each other and then out. Don't worry too much about the toes. They're going to do it too, but the action is happening all the way up in your hips. And while all that's happening, and it should be hard, you should be like pretty over it by now, maybe in the brain, or my body would be. That means you're doing it right, but you're still staying lifted through the heart. You're still pushing your hips forward so you're on this front part of your sit bones, and so that the back part of your sit bones can open up. You're teaching your body to support that opening. Just a few more. Breathing here. Pressing out through the heels. Relax through the shoulders and the face. All right. And let's relax that out a little bit. Now, if you want to take, I just want to take like a quick little quad stretch. So you can do that. You can lie on your belly, just grab one leg, stretch that out, press your hip bone into the floor. It should feel pretty good after all that engagement that we were just doing. And then you can do the other side. Pressing that hip into the floor, squeezing your glutes just a little bit. To open up the front part of the hip there. Should feel really good. All right, and then grab your strap if you have it. If not, no worries. A dog leash also works really well for this, by the way. Okay, so if you have a strap, make a little loop. This is why a dog leash actually works really well. You're gonna place it around the ball of your right foot. If you don't have a strap, you're just going to be grabbing onto the back of your leg. And so you're going to keep your left leg bent for this first one. You're going to press out through that heel. And I kind of like to wrap the strap around my hands so that way they can just kind of sink down. And this one is going to be a little bit more passive. So you don't, all that work that we were doing to pull and everything, you can still do it, but you don't have to now. We've done all that work. So now this is just about letting the hamstring open up. So if you're feeling a good stretch here, great. If you want a little bit more, you can straighten your bottom leg and you'll notice how, oh yeah, because my groin muscles are tight, it starts to pull that right leg in. So just kind of play with that. If this leg is like super bent, that's also totally fine. And again, if you don't have the strap, you're just hanging out. So whatever feels good. You can hang out here. And then you're breathing, you're softening. If you do have your bottom leg on the floor, toes point straight up, that leg still has to work a little bit. It keeps the hip in alignment instead of just splaying out to the side. So that's still important. And so this is a really nice time to tune into that magic of the breath, where as you inhale, you can create just a little more space. Maybe that time you engage a little, you press out through the heel, you pull your toes in, you tighten the thigh just a little on your inhale. And then on your exhale, you just allow gravity to take over. Maybe you can even take your hand up the strap just a little bit. Should feel pretty good. So you can hang out here as long as you want. But for the sake of the video and the fact that we all have busy lives, let's go ahead and switch sides. So start with the right leg bent up, foot on the floor. Put that loop around the ball of your left foot and get comfy. Maybe there's a bend in that knee, that's fine. And then you can hang out here. Again, for more, you can straighten that right leg a little bit. It might even be like, oh, I could straighten it a little, I could straighten, oh, that's it, that's enough, that's plenty. If I take it any more, then my leg is to come forward, so maybe I'll just hang out right there. Easy does it with the hamstring opening. Just take it as far as feels good. Smoothing out the breath, keeping the rest of your body relaxed. Don't allow your shoulders to hunch up too much. Try and keep them surrendered to gravity so they stay open as well. Alrighty. And then to come out of it, bend your right leg up first. Take the strap off. Your feet together and your knees out wide, just to allow the groin to open up a little bit. Maybe bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly, the way we started. All right. And then you can stay here if this next pose doesn't work yet, but I just wanted to throw it in there just as an offering, just to see how your body's doing. So you're going to bring your knees up, happy baby pose. So you're going to reach around, your arms come to the insides of your legs. You reach around, grab onto the outside part of your foot. Your knees are bent and your feet are like right up to the ceiling. And then, so you're going to feel your tailbone and low back want to come up. See if you can anchor them down. So over time, your entire spine sits on the ground. Now, I've been practicing this for a long time, so it looks easy for me, but believe me, this is not how it started out. So be gentle, just kind of see how it works in your body. If you're really rounded up, that's fine, just see it. Usually it feels like a nice big stretch through the groin, through the top part of those hamstrings. So and this one's a nice one to wiggle around a little bit too. Like you're a happy baby in your crib, being like, oh, I don't have to worry about money or anything. Breathing all the way down into your pelvis if you can. So keep your attention on those sit bone spots, those hamstring attachments, those lower part of your body that we forget about most of the time. And then when you've had enough of that, relax. Take your left leg out. Take your right leg up like a little L. And then you can bend that knee if you want, but see how it feels in a big straight leg twist. Open up the IT band and all the outside stabilizer muscles. And then just settle into that. So no need in this one to be pressing out through any heels, to be checking on your alignment. This is just you relaxing into gravity and relaxing into the twist just as much as works in your body. And bend that knee, pull your belly in a little. And then switch sides, so the left leg points up, right leg stretches out. Big inhale to create space, and then exhale. Left leg comes over to the right, your head turns off to the left, twist. And then relax. So if some bending and readjusting in your legs happens, great. Let it be. Oh, could stay here all day. But when you're ready, bend that knee, come back to center, maybe give yourself one last little hug because you're so awesome and you've done your yoga today, which is just great. And then just allow your legs to come out, palms face up, maybe any last little wiggles that you need. Take a big breath in through the nose. Hold it at the top, fill up all the way, maybe even a little bit more, and then exhale out through the mouth and just let everything go. relax completely into the floor.